Central School. It's Mrs. Hewing here with you this morning, and I have some fabulous books to tell you about today. To start off, I have Depo by C.C. Bell. Now, what I love about this book is it's actually kind of an autobiography. C.C. Bell is writing about her life as she was growing up as a child, when she had hearing difficulties and she had to wear hearing aids. She talked about what it was like having to wear this huge, giant, bulky contraption wrapped around her chest and up to her ears. Now, I told you this is an autobiography, but as you can tell, she depicts herself here as a bunny. Of course, she's a real person, but this is a fabulous book. It is a graphic novel telling us all about C.C. Bell's life and what it was like for her growing up. She was so excited when she finally got her hearing aids and she was able to hear, but at the same time, it did come with some problems. I really think you're going to love this story. It's short, quick, and pretty easy read. The book's pretty thick, but because it's a graphic novel, I think you'll really like it. All right, next up is for my baseball fans. This one is by Derek Jeter from the New York Yankees. This book is called Changeup. Now, there's a picture of him here on back. As a young boy, Derek wanted to play baseball more than anything. And this is a little bit biography, but he's added some embellishment and changed some things around just a little bit. In this story, Changeup, he's so excited about having his dad coach his baseball team for the first time in his life. And he knows they're going to have a winning season. Until one of the boys on his team wants nothing to do with baseball, is only there because his parents made him. And he's making Derek's life miserable when it comes to baseball. And Derek loves baseball more than anything else. All Derek wants to do is play shortstop, but Dad keeps putting him in the outfield and catching and pitching and all these other positions. Why would he do that when he knows Derek's best at shortstop? So this is a great book if you love sports, if you love baseball. Fabulous book about learning the sport of the game and how you can become a better player and help your teammates become better players. Yeah. After that, I have Al Capone Does My Shirts by Jennifer Kolendenko, maybe? So in this story, you're going to meet Moose Flanagan. Now, Moose lives somewhere incredibly different than most people. Moose lives on the island of Alcatraz in 1935. Alcatraz is actually a famous prison that's based in Alcatraz Island. It has since been closed to the public, but this is a historical fiction story about Moose who lived on the island and had to take a ferry and take a boat every year or every morning to the mainland so he could go to school, had to take the boat back, and all the people at his school wondered what it was like growing up with all of those prisoners around him. Now, the thing Moose won't actually tell them is that he never actually gets a chance to meet these prisoners. There's a huge fence. He can never see them. He can never interact with them. But no one knows that. At the same time, you find out that the prisoners are the ones who do the laundry for everyone on the island. When Moose needs a huge favor to help his sister out, he sends a note in one of his pants pockets trying to get it to Al Capone to see if the famous mobster can help his sister. It's really a fabulous story about family, and it's really kind of interesting to hear about all of these criminals who used to live on Alcatraz Island. Next up is Kate DiCamillo's The Rising Tiger. Now, this is kind of a sad story as you're going through and reading it. Our main character in the story, Rob, meets a girl named Sissy. She's new to school. Rob's an outcast. He's new, not as new as Sissy, but he knows if he just keeps his head down, doesn't look at anyone, they'll leave him alone. Or they'll beat him up for a little bit and then leave him alone. Well, he comes across a tiger hidden in the woods. He shows it to Sissy. Sissy's convinced that what he needs to do is release and free that tiger. At the same time, Rob's dad's boss hires him to feed and take care of his tiger. What is he going to do? Up next, Amelia Bedelia Means Business by Herman Parrish. Now, as a girl, I loved Amelia Bedelia books. This is Amelia Bedelia's first chapter book. The same things happen to Amelia Bedelia. She never understands what people are saying. She doesn't understand expressions, and she always makes silly mistakes. In this story, Amelia Bedelia is trying to earn money and start a business to make enough money to buy a new bike. Well, the very first thing she tries to do is she tries to open a lemonade stand, and she makes a beautiful sign about lemons, and she decides to sell her lemonades at a used car lot. Now, the problem is when the newspaper reporters show up to interview this young entrepreneur who's trying to make money, they start laughing when they see a big giant sign that says lemons right next to all the used cars. And the man who owns the car lot thinks that Amelia Bedelia is calling his cars lemons. That's not what she meant at all. Next up, I have a nonfiction book for you, Extreme Pirate Secrets Revealed. This one, I can't remember the author, Anna Claiborne. All right. Amputating a leg, discovering lost pirate gold, pesky pirate parasites. If there is anything you ever wanted to know about being a pirate, you will find it in this nonfiction book. It talks about the tools that they used. It talks about the food that they would eat and drink. And the fact that, honestly, they drank a lot of grog and ale to kill the germs that were on their food. It talked about the medicines and the number of bugs and lice that they had to deal with. I do not think I could make it as a pirate, but this is a great book if you want to learn about it. Next up is A Long Walk to Water. Now, this is by Linda Sue Park. This is based on a true story. There's actually two stories going on throughout this book. At the beginning of each chapter in brown print, you hear the story of Naya. And Naya's talking about how every day she has to walk to the watering hole with a jug to bring back water for her family. Throughout the course of the book, you'll find out that Naya's younger sister gets sick from the water she's drinking. It's not clean enough, and what are they going to do to make sure she has clean water? At the same time, in the same chapters, in black print, you're going to be reading about Salva. Now, Salva's story actually happens about 20 years before Naya's story. And Salva's story is the story of a young boy growing up through civil war in the country of Sudan. He goes to school one day, and then the civil war comes to his area, and he has to flee into the woods, into the desert, and he can no longer go home. He loses his family. At one point, he does meet up with his uncle. It's a very sad story, a very good story. Definitely recommend 5th graders read this one. I wouldn't have someone younger than that probably read it. But it is a heartwarming, wonderful story. And at the very end of the book, you'll see why we read about Naya and Silva both and how they come together. Last book I want to tell you about is another nonfiction. It's You Wouldn't Want to Be a Suffragist, a protest movement that's rougher than you expected, written by Fiona MacDonald. Now, this is all about women in both America and Great Britain when they were trying to get the right to vote. It talked about how African Americans had already won their right, but women still did not. Now, lots of great facts, lots of great information in here, but one of the things I love is the illustrations. David Antrim was the illustrator, and it just added to it, and it made it pretty funny when I would look through and see the things. Throughout the book, you'll find out the history and what the women had to do to get the right to vote. But in the corner of each page, you're going to find a handy hint. So that way, if you are a suffragist and you're wanting your right to vote, this is what you need to do. Now, these are not things that you probably would have thought of. It's a fabulous book telling about the history of how women got the right to vote. All right, those are all the books I have for you today. I hope you've got a new idea of something wonderful you can pick up from our library to read. See you next time.